Good evening, everyone.
Can you? Oh, let me turn my camera. You turned it around. There we go. Okay. Yeah.
You know. So you got 4 of those back.
Homework, good job. We'll get started shortly. We'll give other parents an opportunity to join. And we'll do introductions. Just if you didn't catch the announcement, this meeting is being recorded. And so if you don't want your camera on, that's fine. We respect your privacy. But just to let you know, if someone can turn their sound off, Don.
If anyone feels
So if they don't mute, and if we have a level of disrespect in this meeting, I'll tell you right now, I'll kick you guys out of my meeting. Okay, so I want to ask everyone that wants to be here to be here, please mute yourselves. And if you know we have to continue to go over that, then I will. Jerry, can you put yourself on mute because it's some feedback?
Got it.
All right. So I appreciate you all being here. Thank you. I am Christina Laster. In this capacity, I am going to be conducting this Know Your Rights training for parents and people that just reached out to me saying, you know, we want to advocate, you know, but we don't even understand where to begin. This is one of those types of trainings where me and Jerry and we're in a coalition of advocates and activists who want to inform you about your rights and want to be able to help you advocate, whether that is through the local school board or to escalate matters to the U.S. Department of Education. So I welcome you all. If you have, you know, this link and you want to share it with another parent who you think should be here, fine. I will be recording this meeting and probably sharing it from our advocacy websites. And so we'll give you that information. Jerry, if you want to go ahead and do an introduction, that's fine.
Jerry Green, Black Student Advocate. We stopped the preschool to prison pipeline by advocating for Black employees and Black students across the country. Right now, we have over 5,300 consultations. We have right about 4 districts served, 1 settlement, signed 2 contracts within the last 2 weeks that we're going to be serving more districts and doing more lawsuits. I am an advocate. I'm not an attorney, but I do quarterback and put the team together once I do arrange everything with the parent.
Right. And again, I am Christina Laster. Thank you, Jerry. Again, I am Christina Laster. I will put my contact information in the chat for those of you that may have been trying to reach out to me due to the privacy of some of the issues with regards to students and minors. What I would ask is that you not share personally identifiable information like your name, your house address, your phone number, even your student's name and age and what school they attend, right, in the chat, because, you know, we definitely want to talk to you, but we don't want you to share that in like a public setting like this. So I always give that advisory to be cautious about the information that you put in the chat. I will, as to respect the privacy of minor children and not utilize names. Will only utilize scenarios if you ask a question, because, you know, that is their right to have to privacy and other families as well. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time. So let's just go ahead and get started. And I wanted to really start by addressing what your constitutional right is in the state of California. Okay, so as you can see right here on this screen that I have brought up, the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs shows you what your constitutional right to safety, to school safety, is in the state of California, right? And all of you as parents, as right holders with students in schools have this right. So let's look at this. And then we're going to go from this into the actual education code for the state so that you can understand what the education code delineates, that you have the right to with regards to, you know, participation, making requests, being a part of forming committees, right? A lot of times, you know, as parents, what we do is we'll ask a question to a teacher or a principal and then just stop there, without fully understanding what our rights are and fully advocating with the knowledge of those rights. So as you can see right here, right to safe schools, okay? From the School Safety Legal Anthology, we'll see right here, it's actually 19 pages. I'm going to read the abstract. I'm going to put this link in the chat and encourage you all to go back and figure out other sections that may pertain to something that you've experienced or something that you know, or want to know about, right? So as you can see, Article 1, Section 28C of the California Constitution states that all students and staff of primary, elementary, junior high, and senior high have the inalienable right to attend campuses that are secure, safe, and peaceful. What I would encourage you to do is look at the way that the Department of Justice defines safe, secure, and peaceful, right? Children shouldn't be in hostile environments, you know, where they're subject to discrimination and oppression and all of this stuff, because schools are publicly funded, right? And so we know that these things do happen and are happening, but we're looking at ways to effectively address them. So federal and California court cases have produced the principle that public entities may not withhold protection of constitutional rights if that withholding deprives citizens of the constitutional right. Under this principle, the California courts should impose on school districts an affirmative duty to devise and implement plans to address the threat of school crime. Okay, so we know that in particular, the Department of Justice is concerned about threats and crime and different things like that. But if you go through the PDF that's going to be at this link, you will be able to find out more information. And if you look up on Google, right, California constitutional rights in education, you will also be able to find more of what the state constitution guarantees your right is and the affirmative duty of districts to carry that out. All right. So we're going to move over to the California legislative information, which is going to be the education code. So for those of you that don't know, that each state, including California, has something outlined in their constitution with the right to school and something outlined in an education code that tells you what are your rights within the education, public education system in the state, right? And so here in particular on 51100 through 51133, and I'm going to highlight that so you'll see. It tells you the right to be involved in the ways that which you can exercise that right. That's not limiting the ways you can exercise that right, but it does delineate the right for your involvement in your child's education, right? And as you can see in some of these other sections of the education code, you're going to find out about elementary and secondary education. What are the rights? What is the state's obligation or duty to carry that out? And then instruction and services, general programs, and then we have right here parental involvement. A lot of people ask me about suspensions and expulsions, right? You're going to find that in the 4800 series. So right here, where you see instruction and services, that division 4 right here out of the education code, you're going to find that in the 4800 series. Okay, so you can go back and I'll put all of these in the chats when I pause to stop talking, but I wanted you guys to see what your right is under the education code, under the state constitution, and understand how to advocate for your rights. Okay, the legislature finds and declares all of the following. A, it is essential to our democratic form of government that parents and guardians of school-age children attending public schools and other citizens participate in improving public education institutions, specifically involving parents and guardians of pupils in the education process, is fundamental to a healthy system of public education. Okay, and it goes on to talk about research, that the data that backs this statement, and then more. All participants in the education process benefit when schools genuinely welcome, encourage, and guide families into establishing equal partnerships. So if you're feeling that you're not allowed to be an equal partner in your child's education, guess what? Then that's probably true. We've seen it all in the realm of in space of advocacy and activism that we're in, and there are effective steps that you should take without wasting time. Urgent. This is a matter of urgency to advocate according to your legal affirmative rights and their duty to carry them out and enforce what is along the lines of having an equal partnership. These are your children. Public schools are publicly funded. They're not free. Right. But if we go in and we have a problem and we only, get upset about it without understanding our legal rights or understanding what does the education code or the Constitution say or how to escalate a matter, then it won't get solved. And a lot of times, that varies depending on the nature of the situation. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and Jerry, you can go ahead and start sharing whatever you would like to share with regards to ed code. I'll put these in the chat and then we'll go on to the slides.
So give some backstory. In 1964, LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, on the War on Poverty, he said that Title I parents should be involved in their students' education. And inside that program, there were two different components. One everyone heard of, which was Head Start. The other one was the follow through. And what follow through says is that parents should be involved or engaged in their kids' education. Then back in 1996, President Clinton signed into law that 1% of funding should go for parent involvement, parent engagement. So when your district now is talking about APAC, they're not doing anything and doing you a favor. They're finally getting in line with the federal legislation. So part of you being involved is mandated and is the law. So they can't stop you from being involved in your kids' education and you advocating and you being an equal partner. And really, because you've been advocating for your student their whole life, you should be the quarterback and they should be the receivers. Are you telling them where you want them to do for your student and how to do it? So don't let the school district intimidate you thinking that they're in control when actually all they're doing is fulfilling a service contract, no different than a plumber, electrician, and it's a service. And if you feel your student is not getting the services they need, then remove your student and put them somewhere else. And now I really push homeschooling, and the reason being because parents, if you're starting off with love for your student, but you can't teach, that's more than what they're getting in these K through 12 districts. Let's start off with love and then build from there. But when we have our students going to school across the country and they're suspending and expelling kindergartners, or they call the police on kindergartners to get handcuffed, there's no love there. And also parents, teachers have an obligation for when your student leave your threshold or walk out of your house until they walk back in your house, locals in parentis, which means they are an extension of you, and a parent should be on site. So again, they supposed to step in the gap and protect your baby, not leave your baby be exposed, be bullied, being harassed. And anytime that happens, even selective enforcement of policy and procedures, that's a civil rights violation of Title VI, because any school that receives federal funding cannot selectively enforce the policy and procedures. And I'll stop there and land my plane. Christina, go ahead.
Right. And so there's levels of advocacy again. And my thing is to just familiarize you with the policy and legislation components of advocacy, right? We oftentimes, if I get upset, I've learned to train myself to ask for the policy, right? Before I have an oral verbal conversation with people. I want to know, according to what policy did you do this? According to what law do you have the authority to do this? Or according to what rule are you going to enforce a regulation, right? Because if I recognize that you are violating laws, right, and public codes, now I know either to take that into the courts or to take that into a law enforcement agency. And I'm not talking about the local police. Okay, we'll get into that at some point in this presentation of where do you escalate educational violations of, when people are not complying, and what do you do? But I would never encourage any of you to leave your child in a place where they're being mistreated, neglected, ignored, and you're constantly fighting this fight month after month, year after year, and not making progress. Okay. So I want to go into, and we will have an opportunity for Q&A. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that, like, I don't want to just talk and talk and talk, but I know because of the nature of how much time we have, I want to just make sure that I cover as much as I can, and then move on to questions. All right. So we will go right here. Okay. Is that small, Jerry, or can you guys see that? You know what? I can do full screen. All right. So again, my purpose and my admonition is that you know your rights. Know what is according to law or according to ed code, whatever it may be. Jerry spoke of Title I. He's talking about Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, right? Because once you understand that, then you know who's responsible for enforcement in these areas, who's responsible for accountability in these areas. What is my ability to bring forward enforcement and accountability as a parent? You're one of the primary and key stakeholders amongst educators, amongst local school boards, amongst other, people that are, in charge of local schools. And you need to know that, right? Like, if you don't believe it, it's probably because you weren't treated as if you were. So we just finished talking about the section of the Education Code, specifically Article 1 highlights the importance of and right to parental involvement. So a lot of times people hear parental involvement and, sometimes it could feel like an attack. I know as a Black parent, it's felt like that because it's always like, oh, you're not involved, engaged to death. People say stuff like that, right? And that is not factual, right? Because we're constantly showing up in multiple ways for our children and others. And so I understand hearing that term is kind of a turnoff, right? But when you look at the way that it's codified, this is the reason why the term continues to come up, because all of that is codified in education codes and titles of acts, right? In education law and frameworks. And so you will hear that term. And sometimes, you know, like I said, it can invoke or provoke negative feelings because negative narratives and connotations have been out there. But again, that's why we want you to know your rights. Okay. And so it emphasizes the following points. And I'm talking about the California Education Code. So we talked about parental participation and the right to it, right? The legislator recognizes the significance of parents and guardians actively participating in the improvement of public education institutions, right? Their involvement is seen as essential, your involvement, for a healthy system of public education. So a lot of times that shows up in various ways, committees and councils, some of those things with regards to funding. You should not only be subjected to filling out a survey once a year to be involved in your child's education as a primary or key stakeholder over your child's education. That's an insult. Okay. You should be able to be a part of wellness committees to talk about school lunch and meals preparation and make decisions. Superintendent's, stakeholder committee that talks about school funding and allocations, right? The local control funding formula, being a part of, school advisory, whatever that may be, you should be able to hold a decision-making role beyond in a yearly survey. Okay, this is not a booty call, and I'm sorry, I can't say it no better. Right? Not just send me a survey when you guys feel like gathering my opinion or suggestion so that you can check a box. You got to stop people from checking boxes. You got to disrupt those types of practices. Okay. So your involvement is essential. Your decision-making ability and exercising your rights to make decisions is the most essential, because you are a credible source of information about your child and their needs. There's nobody that is going to sit there that is more credible than you as the parent. I tell parents this all the time, and I know I can't say it enough. So positive impact of the family involvement. So again, the ed code, the section that I put in the chat, covers this positive impact, right? It talks about the research. Does someone need to mute? I'm sorry. And the only reason I say that is because I, find myself yelling over background sounds and stuff. So I don't mean to be rude. Okay. And so research, again, there's plenty of it out there. If you want to go and look it up and find out the data on, what that is, what that looks like, research about families and their level of engagement and how it betters the outcomes for education. That was embedded in the education code that I just shared with you guys in the chat, which was based on education code parental involvement. I definitely want you to go and look at that more, because there's other sections of the codes. They deal with the way that things are supposed to be carried out. Jerry, do you want to go ahead and touch in on numbers 1 and 2?
So what happens is that no other industry gets to talk bad about a customer. You hear school districts doing things and saying, oh, Black parents don't care and Black students can't learn. That's part of the mechanism of their bullying to keep you away from school districts and for you to stay involved. Because the more you get involved, the more you learn the system, the more you know that you have the power to tell them what to do. But if you're not involved, they're going to keep the power on their side. And that's the perception that they want you to believe, that you're powerless. And also, I want to back up. We're talking ed code. So when you get pulled over by the police and you get a ticket, they use the penal code. When you're dealing with school districts, it's education code, even for disciplining students and things like that. So that's when we reference education code, that's what it is. So understand that you are the most valuable player and advocate for your student. And we can't emphasize that enough, because you can have organizations that want to get things done and it won't happen. But you get a group of parents that say they want to see something happen, it will happen. But you have to be speaking in one voice and let everyone within the group needs of their students be met. Because what a district will do is they will meet the needs of little Jerry, but they might not meet the needs of Michelle. So now the parent is feeling neglected. And that's how the district will try to divide and conquer. So you have to speak with one voice and understand what the objective is for the meetings. Also, something else, when you go to meetings, never go to a meeting by yourself. If you don't have someone else to go with you, then call someone else on the phone so they can be another set of ears. Because
And
I've
that goes
seen,
for board meetings too.
yes,
If you plan on attending a board meeting, and an upcoming one, what is the best thing that you all can do is combine your efforts, organize together, and then go in based on some of this information that I'm sharing with you and make your demands. I'm sorry, Jerry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No,
just
we
wanted
good.
to say that there are some parents that are notifying me that they didn't get the code and were not able to get in. And so I am sending that information, but
Okay.
yes, please go ahead. I had to just
No
stop
problem.
sharing. for a
And
minute.
so what happens is they want to keep you away from the district. So understand, each one of your student is worth a certain amount of money to the district. And the business of school districts is this: as long as your kid is labeled IEP 504, needs a one-on-one aid and all these other things, then your kid is an asset. But when it's time to deliver the services, your kid's a liability. So if your kid is worth $25,000 and they put 20 kids in the room, that classroom's worth 500,000, but they put one teacher, one aide, so now they're paying say 150. That's a $350,000 profit to the district, and that's how the business of school districts work. So you have to demand the services you want for your student. Do not attend a meeting by yourself, because I've seen everyone from a superintendent down to kindergarten aide lie. So they will lie in a minute to protect their best interests. And school districts work just like a beehive. All the workers of the beehive, they're there to protect the bees, the queen, and the employees of a school district are there to protect the district. It doesn't matter how much someone says they love little Jerry. Soon as it comes out the little Jerry parent is advocating too much, then everyone is going to turn on that parent and assassinate little Jerry's character and also his parents' character. And we see it time and time again within these districts. Christina, go ahead.
All right. And so I believe that we have someone that entered that is actually a member of the board. I just want to reiterate that this meeting is to inform just parents in the community, which is fine if you attend. But this meeting is to inform parents and the community about their rights according to the California Constitution for safety in schools, according to Ed Code and parental involvement, and how to escalate matters. So we are talking about the education code and part 2 of that, and what is
Christina, let me interject something. So I'm glad a school board member's here, so I'm gonna tell you who your superintendent is. On January 19th, January 10th, 2019, when your superintendent was number 3 in Riverside USD, myself and one of my colleagues had a meeting with him and Dr. Kaisha Holmes in their office. And I was going to see what was going on with their equity program. And they were like, well, Jerry, what can you do? I said, where's your equity program? We went around for about 15 minutes. And finally, Dr. Holmes said, Jerry, we don't have one. And I was like, what do you mean your numbers are so bad for Black students? What do you mean you don't have an equity plan? And at that point, Dr. Ryan Lewis said, Jerry, we're looking for a friend. I said, if you're not down for Black student achievement and Black excellence, we're not a good fit. And there was nothing else he can say in the meeting. But also in that meeting, then they start talking to my colleague, and she ended up getting a $300,000 contract in January. So if everyone knows everything, the budget is already put out in July when school starts, and they know where the money's supposed to go. So at that point, they were trying to offer me a contract so I wouldn't advocate and be independent. They wanted to shut me up. So that's who your superintendent is at Lake Elsinore USD.
All right. So there you have it. And so we are going to go on to number 3. Again, as I mentioned, all of this stuff is public records, right? The information about public schools, the research, all of that stuff is public records. I put some links in the chat. You guys have access to that information. According to like FERPA rights, like I said in the beginning, there's some personally identifiable information that should not be shared and cannot be shared. We're talking about children again. And so names shouldn't be going out on, documents and things like that, that are public information. And so be very cautious about the things that you share as well about your child, because you just don't know. A lot of times we want to put things out there and say what happened, but you just don't know who's all looking at that information and what they're going to do to it. And so protect your rights to privacy. If you need to know more information about your right with school records, then look up FERPA, FERPA. Okay, that will tell you your right to review records, your right to question the way they're maintained about your student, your right to ask for inaccuracies to be taken out of your child's record, or if there are things missing, right, in your child's records, and to be able to review. And there's no maximum limit of times that you should be able to access your child's record, review, make sure that the data is accurate, make sure that the records are accurate, the grading, all of that. And I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to put a formal request according to your FERPA rights to look at all of those things. And those also allow you to look at nurses' notes, right? How many times has your child went to the health office? Do you even know, right? Because typically there's only certain scenarios where the health office will then reach out to you. Sometimes you have schools that every time a child comes into the health office, they're going to contact the parents, right? But then there's other schools that don't quite do that. And so if you want to get that information, you have the right under FERPA to review records, to make sure that they are accurate, and a formal process if they're not. Okay. So again, you should be viewed as equal partners in your child's educations, not, just getting those surveys once a year, right? That's not going to help make sure that the education processes are beneficial, that outcomes are progressively increasing. And so if you have been denied the ability to do this, there's a level of escalation to by which you should complain. And I'm going to show you that, right? So we talked about the ed code. We talked about the equal partnership concept and you being equal partners in your child's education, talking about safe school environments, and your role and ability to advocate for your child. No one should be disallowing you advocacy for your child, okay? Involvement at all grade levels. So again, there's no minimum or maximum amount of, ability to advocate for your child. I see this sometimes where parents see that their children are in high school and they sometimes feel like they don't have the right to advocate like they used to when they were in elementary school. That's not true. right? I want you to know that. So involvement at all grade levels. This is public education. It's publicly funded. You are a member of the local community and you are helping to fund this education, okay? Family and school collaborative efforts are most effective when parents and guardians are involved in various roles across all grade levels, ranging from preschool through high school. Listen, I have parents that I'm still helping to advocate for their children on the higher education level, community colleges, universities, all of that. And so I don't even think it ends in high school, right? I just want to say that. All right. And so we're going to go to the reason why I shared the education code 51100 series with you is because by understanding and acknowledging these principles outlined in the education code and in the Constitution, talking about safety, and parents and guardians like you all can be aware of your rights and responsibilities in actively engaging with your child's education. Okay. So let's go to the next one because I do want to get into the information about school boards. So here we are talking more about the policies and procedures, rules and regulations, enforcement, transparency, accountability. What does it all mean, right? School funding, right? So I want to talk to you about the structure of California school boards. The California school board structure consists of local school boards that govern public school districts in the state. Now, these are elected officials, right? You know that if you live in a trustee area, you know, you should know who your trustee is. You should be able to go even to the registrar's office, the voting registrar's office, find out what trustee area is in your zip code and who is the public elected official school board member for your area. And if you have not had the ability to even meet that person, understand their name, whatever, you know, this is the importance of knowing the structure and knowing who it is. Okay. So the California school board structure consists of, again, local school boards that govern the public school districts in the state. These boards have a vital role in overseeing and making decisions related to the educational needs of students within their jurisdiction, right? That's why they're local school boards, right? That's why these are elected positions, right? And you need to understand that as an elected official, there is a function and policies that go along with that. Here are some of the key points, right? Since I'm not going to be able to get into all of the policies and procedures and practices and governance structure stuff about school boards. So we're doing an overview, right? So here are some of those key points about the California school board structure. Local control. Again, I said that each school district has its own governing school board. These boards are responsible for making decisions on policies, curriculum, budgeting, and other important matters that impact the district. That includes safety. Okay, those are important decisions, right? And they're going to be found in a codified way through policies. After they vote, those are the policies that you'll see. And, you know, you have the ability, anyone of the public, whether I live in a school district jurisdiction or not, I should be able to go and find those policies, be able to find the agenda, be able to find the names of the board members, their terms, you know, and when their terms are up. Okay. Board members, school board composition varies across districts, right? Like you heard me say about trustee areas. Okay. Generally, there are 5 or 7 elected board members. They're typically local community members who are elected by the residents. So if you didn't recognize your power within elections, now I hope that you do. Okay. And so these members serve in a voluntary capacity and represent the interests of the community and students. And so if you do not believe that your interests are represented, understand that this is an elected position by residents and community members like yourself. And there is a term and an election and a recall process. Okay. So superintendents, okay. School boards hire a superintendent who serves as the chief executive officer of the school district. The superintendent is responsible for implementing the policies and decisions made by the school board and overseeing the day-to-day operations of the district. Okay. And so if you guys didn't know this about the superintendent, now you understand what their role is in their function and what their relationship is with the school board. Okay, and so let's go into the next overview of what is important to know about school boards. Okay, decision making. Talked a little bit about that, right? School boards make decisions on various aspects of education, such as adopting curriculum standards. How much of this do we see in the news every day? Right? Something's in the news about, curriculum and members of the community or local area or jurisdiction upset, and, not feeling like they have a say, right? And you've seen a lot about board recalls, right? Know your rights as local community members to all of this. Approving textbooks, setting academic goals, approving budgets, hiring staff, including the superintendent. I know a situation arose in a district and the parents asked the board to fire the superintendent because of the lack of progress and accountability that superintendent that they were asking to be fired operated under. Okay. And so in evaluating district performance, they also address issues related to student discipline. I said safety and parental concerns, right? So if you feel like you have went in there with a, look, this is the ed code, this is what the law says, this is what the policy says. I have a concern as a parent that these things are not being followed and the board refuses to address it. Well, that's what you think about when you think about elections and an escalation process. Okay. All right. And so I'm going to go to the next one and then Jerry, I'll let you
let me also add something right there. Parents, you must read the student hand guide every year when it comes out. And when you do that, then you can ask 3 questions. 1, where is that located in the student hand guide? Can you show me? Well, 6 questions. 2, where's that at on the district website? Can you show me? And 3, where's that at in ed code? Can you show me?
Right. And all of these things should be made publicly available. Nobody should have to go around searching in a maze of stuff just to find out the policies and procedures and enforcement, right? They should be in a way that is transparent to the public. Okay. So again, public engagement is a part of a school board's function. Often hold public meetings, right? We know that community and parents and other partners are stakeholders in local education. So oftentimes you will hear of partnerships with local organizations and the like, right? But that includes parents. You are key stakeholders, you're an important stakeholder, and you should never be excluded from decision-making processes. So you can voice your opinions and share your concerns and provide input on various issues affecting the district, and you shouldn't be getting the runaround at any time, because I've had parents reach out to me with concerns. That's why I'm really harping in on this. These meetings should give you an opportunity to actively participate in decision-making processes and contribute to your child's education. And if you don't know what those processes are, and you've looked on the school public website and you can't find them, you need to make sure that you get that information, because yes, they are accountable to the public and the local jurisdiction that you're in, where the school board is. All of that information should be made available, as long as it doesn't violate some Information Act, that they don't have an exemption or exception, or, it's telling personally identifiable information, right? This is public information for public schools under public tax dollars, okay? Nobody should be operating them like it's their entity. It's the public's entity. Okay. So accountability. School boards are accountable to both state and local community. Okay, to both the state and local community. I just finished saying that. They're responsible for maintaining transparency, again, bringing that back around, ensuring academic achievement. When's the last time you've checked the school district's adequate yearly progress rate? How are they doing with adequate yearly progress, right? And addressing the needs of students and families within the district. So you guys shouldn't be feeling isolated from your school board's decision-making processes. Okay, so it is important for you as parents to be aware of the functions and decisions of your local school board. By staying informed about the California education laws and codes, school board policies, and school funding, you can exercise your rights and participate in shaping the educational experience for your children while advocating for their needs. That should say while. I'm sorry, I probably was thinking about whole child approaches when I put whole, but while advocating for their needs. Jerry, you want to go ahead before I go into the U.S. Department of Education?
Sure. Priority number 3 of the 8 priorities from California Department of Education is parent engagement, parent involvement. So if someone tell you that you can't be involved to have an input for in reference to what's going on at the school site in your school district, then they out of line and they are not in compliant with what LBJ said in 66, 96, President Clinton, and also LCAP, because it's number 3 out of the state's priority is parent engagement, parent involvement. So that's what gives you the right to stand boldly and advocate for your student.
All right. And so I want to go into when you've done all of this, right? When you've talked as much as you're going to talk, I want to go into 2 forms of complaints, right? This one I don't find as effective because, you know, if people weren't willing to hold themselves accountable at the local level, then, you know, I typically tend to escalate those to the U.S. Department of Education, depending on the matter. Okay. And so right here, you can see that California Department of Education does have, and again, you'll see right here how important the California Department of Education code of regulations, and they'll show you where to find this at in the section. Okay, so this is the responsibilities of the complainant and the local education agency and the California Department of Education, according to California Code of Regulations, Title 5, Sections 4600, 4687. All right, so I want you guys, I'm going to put this in the chat, right? And as you can see, you know, local concerns, many concerns are the responsibility of local educational agencies. That means your local public traditional district school, okay, or school district, including the hiring and evaluation of staff, employee relations, selection, provision of textbooks and materials, pupil discipline, provision of core curricula subjects, homework practices, and policies, dress codes, and school uniforms, right? Every county office of education, school district, and charter school governing board are required to have established local complaint policies that describe the procedures that must be followed to resolve complaints. Copies of complaint policies and procedures are available at county offices of education. That means the Riverside County Office of Education should have a copy of the complaint policies and procedures for schools within their county. And they should be available at the district office or charter school offices, right? Many LEAs post their policies and procedures on their websites, like I mentioned before, right? And so here you have what is called the Uniform Complaint Procedures. Federal and state laws and regulations specify which programs and activities lie within the scope of UCPs, right? And you can look at below for some of those things in reports. Again, you'll see the California Code of Regulations, right? They give you contact information and a pamphlet just in case you need that. And then they tell you what is a complaint. And it is a written and signed statement alleging a violation of federal or state laws or regulations, which may include an allegation of unlawful discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Okay. And here are some of the violations, right? A complaint regarding the violation of specific federal and state programs that use categorical funds, such as, right? And you will see these linked to other, codes in the ed code as well. But I'm going to give you the opportunity by putting this in the chat for you guys to go back and look at that. We heard Jerry talk about Title I, Elementary and Secondary Education Act. For some of you, this might be the first time you've heard about all of these processes. And it's okay, because now you have the information, right? Share it with your neighbor, okay? A Williams complaint is another type of uniform complaint regarding, and check up the updated information with regards to Williams complaints and if those are still being heard in the same way. So regards instructional materials, emergency or urgent facilities conditions that pose a threat to health and safety of pupils, okay? A teacher vacancy or misassignment, right? And so you have two forms of complaints here. And then you have right here, this Elementary and Secondary Education Act complaints. And right here, has a way for you to file with the California Department of Education. And I want you guys to make sure that if you ever utilize this uniform complaint procedure, that you pay attention to the rules, because oftentimes, we just put stuff in the complaint and then send it over, and, then it doesn't go all the way because we missed the rule. Okay. We missed a rule. And so I'll put this in the chat. Jerry, do you have anything to say about these uniform complaints?
Correct. From my experience, using this system is very ineffective. Again, many sites and school districts, they know that they're doing things wrong, and they're not going to change until you hold them accountable. So then you putting this in writing and you telling them they're doing it wrong, they might acknowledge it, and many times they're not. And they're just going to say, oh, we're going to fix it, and another BS they do. Also understand my experience with Riverside and many county office of educations around the country, they have no power against school districts. What many county office of education offices do is they're sharecroppers. And when I say that, they get money from the state and the federal, they give it to the school district, and then they offer training classes to get the money back, back on their books. So one of my first situations when I was advocating for a student, I went to the county to find out that we were not there to continue to defend the student's position. The county office of education, all they were there to do is make sure the district followed policy. And so that's the miscommunication that we have in the community, thinking that we can go to the county for assistance, when again, they don't have any power over districts because they're independent agencies of each other. We would think that it would be some kind of order like city, county, state accountability. Is not. So don't fool yourself saying, oh, I'll go to the county and they're going to fix my problem, because they will not.
Right, but they should be able to offer you a copy of, the processes and procedures, right? So, I mean, no one should be denied information. And speaking of,
Well,
what
Christina,
we share.
Christina, hang on a second. I see we have a board member here, Heidi Dodd. Heidi, do you want to say anything?
No, I just came to learn and listen.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Christina, go ahead.
Thanks and welcome. All right. And so now what I want to talk about is, again, when we found that in our advocacy, at least I've been doing this quite for a long time, and longer than I've wanted to, right? Like, really, I had hoped that I would be done advocating, because a lot of things that come to me are about discrimination, harassment, bullying, special education violations, right? And you know, you just don't want to see that thing continue. You want to see things change and get better. But unfortunately, the more that I have advocated, the more that I've recognized the need for advocates. And so I do this nationally. So this is why I want to inform you about your right to escalate a matter if you've tried all the other channels that we've talked about, right? Advocating as much as you can as a parent. And look, these things are just not coming out right. There are enforcement agencies within the U.S. Department of Education. I am particularly going to bring up the Office for Civil Rights, okay? And just know that every public institution, even airports, right? You know, Health and Human Services, they have a U.S. enforcement, you know, office for them under the Office for Civil Rights. So you know, there's other things that might happen and you might want to look those up. But anyway, the Office for Civil Rights mission is to ensure equal access to education and to promote educational excellence through vigorous enforcement of civil rights in our nation's schools, right? A lot of times, like I said, parents don't know that they have the ability to file a complaint with another, you know, Department of Education in the U.S. Department of Education, right? And then follow up to see what is happening with regards to that complaint, right? And so as you will see when I drop this in the chat, it'll show you step by step how to file. It even guides you through the process. So if I was to click on, you know, file a complaint, you know, I would be able to be guided through the steps of what I need to put in the informational sections, right? It'll tell me step by step, and then I can file that complaint online, right? And so again, you'll see frequently asked questions, right? There's no dumb questions. Any question that you have, another parent may have asked it. And guess what? The U.S. Department of Education probably answered it or given guidance with regards to several key issues that are, you know, topics of discussion constantly that we see in the media and all these other things, right? But you need to know this stuff. And so I am going to put this in the chat so that you can understand your right to escalate a matter if you believe there's a civil rights violation. What I would like for you to do is also just click on here to see other things that they enforce or contact them, right? You have the ability, again, all of these are public institutions, okay? Public departments, right? That means that the public owns them, okay? And so don't feel afraid to contact 5 times in a week, like, hey, you know what? I forgot to ask last time. I have another question. I need some technical support. I want you to exercise your right and ability to receive that technical support from all of the departments that you contact, and you can ask them specifically for the type of support that you need so that they can guide you to the right place and make sure that you use your time effectively. So with that being said, I'm going to drop this in the chat, and I'm going to
Christina,
allow...
mention the 3 organizations that actually have Office of Civil Rights.
HHS has an Office for Civil Rights. The Federal Aviation, you know, has an Office for Civil Rights. The U.S. Department of Education has an Office for Civil Rights. And so, you know, Health and Human Services, when you're dealing with issues, you know, you don't believe that people are, if you believe that you have been discriminated against in your medical treatment plan, right? Or, you know, your HMO, or if you receive Medicaid or Medicare or some other type of social service, then you can go over to HHS, and they have an Office for Civil Rights that you can file again in their complaint portal. And let me just say this. If you don't ever make contact and you don't escalate these matters, they don't know. They're not just sitting back, you know, like, let's look out of our, you know, binoculars and see what's happening across the nation and what's happening to parents at the local level. No, they don't know. And then you engage with them, and that's when they know what exactly is happening. USDA, right? The Federal Mills Program has an Office for Civil Rights. where, you know, if you have a complaint, say for instance, you know, there's a food situation that, you know, is just like, yeah, this is not good. And then you go to your other kid's school and everything's fine, right? And there's just something in particular about one location that isn't in compliance. You can find all of that out at USDA, right? If you have an issue and your child is in the free and reduced lunch meals program, right? Even if you have a WIC issue, and you continue to go back and forth and you're not receiving the support or progress that you're seeking, and it's fair that what you're asking, rational and reasonable and fair, then you can take that to USDA and say, hey, look, I'm a part of this program and you're responsible or tasked with oversight and enforcement and accountability of this program. And here are the things that have happened to me. This is my experience. You probably get a phone interview. If you're not able to get a hold of someone, if you call the number, right, they'll probably have you file the complaint online or through email. You probably get a phone interview and you'll be able to share those experiences. And they are very, they're the experts in these areas. So they know when a complaint is warranted and when it's not. And then oftentimes we just got to be the squeaky wheel. We just got to continue to say, no, I think y'all need to check this out, and continue to tap into these entities that are responsible and tasked and publicly paid to oversee and enforce and hold accountable various public institutions and departments and entities. You have to make sure that you escalate a matter and do not just, you know, it's okay to pick up the phone and vent with your cousins and your friends. And, you know, sometimes people vent to me, right? And I allow that for so many minutes. And I say, well, now we need to escalate this, right? And we need to codify our escalation, because if we don't write it in a formal process, no one will ever know that me and you had this conversation. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to stop. And I am going to answer questions. And if there aren't any, then, you know, we can just end the meeting. But that's all that I had to share with you all. Thank you for your commitment and support and wanting to know your rights.
I just want to say, Christina, this was very informative. This is Brian Wilson.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, this was extremely informative. And I'd love to get more material, even the recording, because there are people who wanted to be here, but for fear of, you know, they were part of the district or what have you, they couldn't see it.
Right.
So I think it's imperative that we do what we can as far as to get that out. There's other people that just couldn't make it because of the time frame.
Right.
So whatever we could do in order to get a copy, I'd appreciate it.
So something else, Brian, you could tell them, if not just this meeting, but any other meeting they want to attend, they could just say parent where it says description. They don't have to give who they are.
Right.
Just say parent. So they still can stay anonymous and still, you know, be on live in case they might have a question that, you know, that more parents might have.
That's
And
great.
to acknowledge the fact that it's unfortunate, right, that parents feel intimidated or bullied or threatened somehow out of their rights, and afraid to speak up. And I hope that I encourage, and yes, I will send you all everyone that's, you know, signed up, I will send out the recording. And yes, I can, you know, put a 1-page together that talks about different points of escalation. I don't have a problem with doing that, but I need to acknowledge in this space that it is unfortunate if you feel like you cannot utilize your rights to advocate for your child. Okay, I will acknowledge that. And, you know, really, you know, it's a failure of the public education system by doing that. We all will benefit if we're able to be or equal partners when it comes to education, but you do have bad actors out there. You know, you got them everywhere. I'm just going to say that, right? And so it requires the brave and bold people to disrupt that type of practice, because the frequency of wrong don't make it right. And say, you know what, we're going to go along this escalation process, even if that means, like I told you, dealing with it at the ballot. Okay, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that this community has a say in the way that education in our schools are run. And we have these decision-making processes and we want to be a part of them, and we're not going to be excluded, right? And that's going to take the cohesion of parents and the community, and other people that want to be in coalition to say, yes, we need to transform this local school and make sure outcomes are progressively better, safety is maintained, and it becomes better in areas that you might have concerns, right? And this shouldn't be a question of ethnicity, nationality, religion, or socioeconomic status or familial status. If it is, that's discrimination. Okay. And so, yes, I will share this recording. And yes, I will put together a one-pager. I see your question in the chat. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Christina, can I share real fast?
Sure.
Let me know when it pops up.
I see that.
Does everyone
It's
else see that?
Yep.
So again, so we have 6 brands that are copywritten in DC because we have advocated for each one of these groups. So the thing is, even though we lead in with the Black Student Advocate, the system is the system is the system. And kids from all walks need someone to stand in the gap for them and help them. And anyone who calls us, we help.
All right. And so thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. He just gave you his contact information, right? I know that sometimes people try to reach me and we work together on advocating because it requires that. We're part of larger networks of advocates and activists in coalition with others that are fighting the good fight to make sure that our children have a safe, productive place to learn and thrive, right? And so, if you didn't, I believe that everyone in here signed up. The only reason I'm asking is so that I'm going to send the recording to all of the emails by the way you registered, and the one page or a copy of my slides, if that's helpful. All right. So if you didn't sign up through the Zoom registration, you can privately chat me right now your email address so I can make sure you get that information. Are there any other questions? Okay. So Jerry, did you want to mention anything about
I want to say one more thing. I do not contract with school districts. I only advocate for the parents or the students. So parents, you don't have to worry about me flipping and trying to catch a check from a school district. So the work we do is against school districts across the country.
So I know that there has been some discussion about upcoming board meetings. Please, all I ask is that you utilize the information that I gave you about, your rights and policies, right? To make a request or state your concern along the lines of that, right? Sometimes we can be very emotional, and it is a time of filled with emotions, right? But oftentimes those types of concerns or demands are not met in a codified way. And so, I wanted to give you all of the information that you need for future meetings, for future discussions, for future board meetings, whatever that may be, so that you understand your rights to make a codified or policy or legislation request according to what school boards are accountable for, and according to your rights as parents. And so thank you for joining us. If there's no further questions, then I'll go ahead and end the meeting, and we appreciate your time and commitment.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, shit.